the poppadoms, but you're not getting the samosas and the garnish on the side. That's it. You're still getting the main course. Is it though? In my last reaction video of this type, it was Digital Foundry that had hands-on experience with the PS5 Pro. But there were still some comments, people saying they can't really still see a huge difference. What I should have pointed out in that video was that YouTube does actually compress the image quite badly. What you're seeing on a YouTube video is, 2, 3, 4, 5 times worse maybe than what you're going to see in real life. What you're going to see in real life is above and beyond what you're seeing on a YouTube video. It looks quite mucky and indistinct sometimes, the way YouTube does compress videos. But that aside, let's take a look at this hands-on video from Nick930. This video was sent to me by a friend of mine. I'm yet to see it. I've just jumped forward though to the bit where the games comparisons start, because that's what people generally want to see. The first part of the video was just literally talking about the design of the machine itself. So let's dive in and see what Nick930 has to say.
What are you actually getting with the PlayStation 5 Pro? Well, based on my discussions with several different development studios this past week, along with some hands-on time playing through many of PlayStation 5's biggest games, the most immediate benefit of the PlayStation 5 Pro is its widely adopted PlayStation Spectral Super Resolution, or PSSR for short. As you can probably already guess, this is PlayStation's response to things like Nvidia's DLSS AI-based super sampling that can upscale the resolution of a game to 4K without sacrificing as much performance as you'd expect with traditional native resolutions. This means games...
Just quickly, the reason why that's a big deal, a lot of people saw the base specs of the PS5 Pro compared to the base model and said it's hardly any difference, but there's a lot of custom stuff going on which is going to take the workload off the CPU. So people said, oh, it's the same CPU. The jump up in power doesn't seem that great, but the combination of this PSSR, the ray tracing chip and other things basically takes the workload off the main CPU, meaning it can actually have overheads to do more stuff basically without actually the usual raw effort required by the base PS5.
Traditional native resolutions. This means games like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Gran Turismo 7, The Last of Us Part 2, and most new games set to release in the future will all aim to take advantage of this new tech to push higher fidelity images without sacrificing that coveted 60 FPS. On top of PSSR, the PS5 Pro also sports some new baseline internal upgrades as well, primarily this new graphics chip that boasts a 67% boost to compute units and a 28% increase to RAM speed, for an estimated 45% increase in overall rendering speeds. The CPU hasn't seen quite as big of an improvement, but it is clocked at a higher frequency of 3.8 GHz, which is roughly 10% faster than what's available on the base PlayStation 5. According to the devs I spoke to, most of the upgrades that they were able to make to their software were strongly aligned with the extra headroom afforded to them by the GPU, with the PSSR technology being a game changer for rendering games at a higher resolution.
Right, so that's devs talking. Now the devs are saying the PSR is a bit of a game changer, literally.
For rendering games at a higher resolution without having to sacrifice their performance. The PS5 Pro also aims to improve the rendering speed of ray tracing effects as well, with updates that allow the hardware to calculate rays at more than double the speed of the base PS5. Though, across the several demos that I played, this feature wasn't given quite as much of the spotlight, and seemed limited to only a handful of games like Gran Turismo 7, Spider-Man 2, and Hogwarts Legacy. With those titles, I was impressed to find new implementation of ray tracing features with the PS5 Pro, especially Gran Turismo 7, that will feature in-game ray traced reflections against the bodies of cars.
The reason why ray tracing is so good is because it's almost an end-game graphical capability. One of the best ways to describe it is it perceives light the way your eyes expect to see it in the game world. So everything looks just that much more realistic. It's not like a fake AI kind of thing. It's still obviously AI to a degree because it's a computer game. But the point is, it's conveying light as your eyes expect to see it, which includes reflections and stuff like that. And it's an absolute, game changer if a machine can do that. So for what the PS5 Pro offers, with that big jump, 2 to 3 times ray tracing capability, for me, is a very cool feature indeed.
Feature in-game ray-traced reflections against the bodies of cars.
That looks great.
Rather than being limited to the replay mode like before. Hogwarts Legacy will also implement its ray-traced shadow rendering on PS5 Pro, a feature that was previously limited to the PC release and wasn't included with the base PS5. In general, the benefits of the PlayStation 5 Pro will vary a bit depending on the game that you're playing.
Yeah.
At this event, I was given the chance to freely explore a large room filled with various demo stations, each accompanied by a representative from that studio, and I was able to get a detailed breakdown of each game and what the PlayStation 5 Pro's improved hardware enabled them to achieve. The first game that I sat down and tried was one of PlayStation 5's most visually impressive titles, Gran Turismo 7. This particular demo was unique from the other demos on the showroom floor, as it was running on an 8K display. And remarkably, there was an actual option to kick the game up to an 8K resolution on the PS5 Pro, running at 60 FPS.
Meh.
Which it seemed to manage quite well, with no noticeable dips in the frame rate, at least none that I could discern just eyeballing it.
I don't get 8K. I don't know if you watched the previous video, so I'll make this bit short and I'll went into it a bit more detail in that, but the human eye can only perceive so much detail, and you can't resolve 8K detail unless it's on a video screen that's massive and you're very close to it, like pixel peeping. The analogy I used before, and I'll just mention it very quickly, is literally standing on the sand. I'm a 6 foot tall bloke. If I stand on the beach and I look down to the sand, I can see it's golden and yellow, whatever, but I can't see individual grains of sand unless I get really close to it, get a few inches away, and then I can see all that detail. Even if you've got incredible vision, standing up just 6 feet away, you cannot resolve that detail. And the same is true of 8K. There's almost no point in it. Unless you're going to play your games on a really big screen from literally a couple of feet away, the human eye cannot resolve that detail. It's impossible. And with Gran Turismo 7, it's 8K 60 frames a second, or the PSSR implemented 8K, but at the cost of ray tracing. I'd rather have 4K 60 frames a second with ray tracing. I'm pretty sure that 99% of people are going to do the same thing. This is, for me, a slight waste of resources putting in these kind of modes. Maybe it's just a technical thing to say, oh look, it can sort of do it if you wanted to.
At least none that I could discern just eyeballing it. The mode does come with a few caveats, in that it is being upscaled using the PSSR AI solution, and there was at least some very minor artifacts in rare instances, mainly for a single decorative asset that I noticed off of the track. It also won't utilize the improved ray-traced reflections that I mentioned earlier, but still, 8K at 60 FPS is impressive to see nonetheless, and not something that I expected to see at all.
But what's the point then?
Considering I don't own an 8K TV myself, and I doubt very many of you have considered buying one yet either, this option doesn't necessarily persuade me one way or the other. But I was still impressed by the 4K ray-traced mode, that lets you finally race around at 60 FPS with real-time ray-traced reflections along the sides of vehicles. Following my time with Gran Turismo, I tried out a few other major first-party PlayStation 5 titles, including Demon's Souls, The Last of Us Part 2, Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, and Marvel's Spider-Man 2, all of which approach the improved hardware in more or less the same way. In nearly every discussion I had with developers, I was told the biggest benefit was the added headroom afforded to them by the implementation of PSSR.
Yes.
Ratchet & Clank was particularly interesting, because I was shown a side-by-side of the base PS5 running in performance mode alongside the PS5 Pro version, and I could already see the advantages of this newer PSSR tech compared to the old temporal injection Insomniac had been using before.
It does look sweet.
The blurry artifacting seen on things like the confetti flying around during the opening parade sequence, for example, is now almost entirely cleaned up on the PS5 Pro, as were some of the aliased edges of certain background objects and those distant NPCs in the crowd.
Well, to just ever so briefly get to the title of the video, why can't people see the truth? Because to me, it's crystal clear, even in the compressed YouTube form where we're not actually seeing the full detail. It's crystal clear, the qualities of the Pro, all that extra reflections from the ray tracing, the PSSR, the overhead release of the main CPU, and developers, not like even journalists sort of opinion, developers saying PSSR is a game changer, and yet quite a lot of people are still saying it's no good. It's not any different from a PS5 and things like that, which is kind of ridiculous, to be honest. But why are these people burying their heads in the sand? I don't know. Is it PC owners that are kind of, biased towards their machine? Fair enough, you're going to defend it. All well and good. Is it PS5 owners even that have bought the base model? And they've seen this one come out with more SSD, more capabilities. It's going to play the games better. They're wondering if their games are going to be held back or sort of going to get superior versions on the Pro, and that's, peed them off, whatever, all whatever. But the facts still remain the same, that it is here, and it does, to me, look really, really cool. Anyway, let's crack on, because it's not meant to be what I think about it. It's supposed to be about what Nick930 thinks about it.
Spider-Man 2, we get a slightly different story. In this instance, we're getting the fidelity mode from the base PS5, but at double the frame rate. So no discernible sacrifices to image quality at all. In fact, PSSR even does a better job than the previous upscaling solutions at distant details like text on billboards and ray trace reflections that previously fell apart at a distance.
Wow.
I found this to become a pattern as I explored other titles, with PSSR resolving the smaller details with much more clarity, including Naughty Dog's The Last of Us Part 2, where a small building on the distant hillside could finally be identified. PSSR had an even greater benefit to the Crew Motorfest, as several distant objects and text could now be rendered with a higher accuracy, providing a much sharper image overall. The only demo that seemed to not rely on PSSR seemed to be Guerrilla Games' Horizon Forbidden West.
Looks nice.
According to the spokesperson at the booth, the target for this title's PS5 improvements was on image stability, cleaning up any issues in the presentation using the brute force of the PlayStation 5's more powerful specs, and providing a full native 4K resolution at a stable 60 FPS. Shadow filtering for character hair and skin, for example, has been improved. Depth of field effects are higher quality. The mip-map distance are bumped out further and can be resolved at a greater distance, and the distance that vegetation animates, like trees and grass, has been increased as well, making an already drop-dead gorgeous game look even better on PlayStation's latest console. But these are all mostly first-party titles. How about third-party? Well, we had Final Fantasy VII on the showroom floor, and it was another game that greatly benefits from PS5 Pro's updates. Like many of the first-party games mentioned before, Rebirth leans heavily into PSSR utilization, allowing for essentially a 60 FPS fidelity mode. Of all these titles, performance mode in Rebirth on the current base PS5 is pretty hard to look at, as it runs at a much lower resolution and looks like a blurry mess in my opinion.
It does.
But with PS5 Pro, using the new versatility mode, Rebirth finally looks and plays great at the same time, and even improves the draw distance on some of those distant objects, giving the game the visual fidelity that it always deserved. Performance at 60 FPS was a little shaky here, with what felt like minor dips at times. But I'll have to test this hands-on at a later date to see for sure, as I could only really eyeball this during my time playing. Hogwarts Legacy is another game with some interesting choices in how to utilize the new hardware. Unlike the other titles that seem to favor performance first, Warner Bros. Opted to use PSSR and the improved ray tracing tech to improve the game's fidelity further, bringing it closer to the quality found on the PC version. This means the implementation of ray-traced contact shadows that were not previously made available on PS5, along with improvements to the quality of the ray-traced reflections that bounce off the many marble floors of the castle.
That looks nice.
There were at least 2 other games on display at the event, Dragon's Dogma 2 by Capcom and F124 by Codemasters. Though, for the sake of time, I didn't get around to trying these out personally, and could only see them from a distance. Even still.
F124, if you haven't seen Digital Foundry reaction to this kind of thing, you should watch that, because F124 looks absolutely stunning. Really does look nice. Cannot wait to play F124.
and can only see them from a distance. Even still, the stark contrast between the PlayStation 5 Pro running alongside the base PS5 was unmistakable, and it'll definitely offer gamers much more fun.
Right, so there you go. That's like another hands-on thing. The difference between the PS5 base model and the Pro was unmistakable. So there's a lot of people out there that are still saying they can't see much of a difference, and that may be because of the lower compression, the way that YouTube shows videos. It's not the same as seeing it in real life. It's a world apart. So that may be the reason for that, or they're just, PS5 owners that are a bit miffed if they've just recently bought one and they're not now going to get the top, visual experience from the game without buying a new console. That's fair enough. It could be PC owners, could be lots of different things. But the point is, whether you like it or not, there is a difference, and it is big, an unmistakable difference side by side. Developers saying PSSR is a game changer. I cannot wait to get hold of mine. Really, really looking forward to it.
Contrast between the PlayStation 5 Pro running alongside the base PS5 was unmistakable, and it'll definitely offer gamers much more flexibility in regards to running their favorite games at the quality level and performance level that they want. And this is key, as the PlayStation 5 Pro isn't just going to improve the experience of the games that we've already played. The PS5 Pro will undoubtedly be the benchmark moving forward for new titles, with PSSR being a major factor in balancing the fidelity of new games with the higher frame rates we all want to see. So now, the big question. Is PSSR and the extra hardware boost worth that big $699 asking price? I feel if you ask most people, they'd probably say no. But I don't believe the PS5 Pro is really geared towards your average consumer.
True.
This is very much an enthusiast-level product, aimed at gamers who want a top-of-the-line gaming machine to go along with their high-end displays. My guess is that the base PlayStation 5 and the PlayStation 5 Slim will still be widely supported post-November.
Yeah, it's a true point now. That's what he said. A lot of people that have got a high-end display, I've got LG OLEDs, they run HDMI 2.1, so they can do the 120Hz mode and things like that. You want to see them in all their glory. Now, PS5 is still a great console. So, yeah, some of the people getting upset about the PS5 Pro, they don't need to. It's like the PS5 base model is still an excellent console, and you're still going to be wowed by the graphics for years to come. It's still going to be absolutely great. I mean, so what? Pro owners are going to get an increased graphical boost in some games and extra smoothness, things like that. It's not like you're missing out. It's just like you're not getting that little bit of extra, if that means. It's like you're getting the curry and the poppadoms, but you're not getting the samosas and the garnish on the side. That's it. You're still getting the main course, which is the important bit. Nothing to worry about. Just continue using the PS5 and be happy.
And will continue to sell for the foreseeable future as well. But once we start seeing even more graphically intensive titles coming from these first and third-party developers, there's going to be a continued demand for more technical headroom to drive those experiences. And AI-driven upscaling solutions like PSSR are already proving to be major tools to help facilitate this. So yes, $700 is a lot. And considering the lack of a disk drive and vertical...
Is it though? As someone pointed out in the comments, you get people that pay £1,000 or $1,000 plus to change their phone every 1 or 2 years. Just because the camera's a little bit better, or just because it's the flashiest, newest looking thing sticking out of their top pocket.
So yes, $700 is a lot. And considering the lack of a disk drive and vertical stand, I would have anticipated this price to be a bit lower. But there are definitely major benefits to owning this hardware for future PlayStation titles. And, at least for the time being, this is undoubtedly the most powerful home video game console set to hit the market. But, what do you guys think? Are you planning on picking up the PlayStation 5 Pro?
Already got one.
Let me know in the comment section below. And don't forget to like and subscribe.
Well, so there it is. There's Nick930's take on it with hands-on gameplay. And said things like when he saw the PS5 and PS5 Pro side by side, there was an unmistakable difference. And unmistakable means one looks clearly better than the rest. You've got developers who know it better than anybody else what they're dealing with, because they're the ones actually making games on the thing, saying that PSSR is a game changer. So yeah, really, really looking forward to it. So it is difficult for some people, I suppose, because all they're looking at is videos like this on a compressed video format, where it's not going to look anywhere near as good as it does in real life. But I don't know, maybe some people just want to sort of protect their investment if they bought an expensive PC or bought a PS5 recently and a bit miffed that a better version is coming out. But yeah, whatever. But it is an enthusiast console. If you've got a base PS5, you're still going to be enjoying games on this thing for years to come, and they're still going to look absolutely fantastic. For me, it's just everything from a PS5 game, on a lot of them, plus a bit extra with all those fancy bells and whistles on top, just to get the most out of this current generation. But not essential, but I am looking forward to mine. But there's a video. If you enjoyed it, bash the like and subscribe button, and I'll catch you again in the next one. Bye for now.